to another episode of the STR Sisterhood. I'm your host, Stacy St. And as always, I am so happy to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me into your day. Now, before we jump into this episode, I want to share a quote that I recently read that resonated with me. And it says, "I've learned in life that what you give to others is what provides the most value in your life." I couldn't agree more, Jennifer Lewis. It gives me goosebumps just saying it. I have found the most rewarding work is by helping other people. And so thank you for the opportunity to help you on your journey. Now, in this episode, we are diving into a very, very relevant conversation with attorney Katie Johnson, who is a fellow short-term rental owner, but she also walks us through some litigation that she has been through with her short-term rental portfolio. And my friends, you probably want to grab a pen and a piece of paper because Katie drops some wonderful and helpful information for anyone who is facing short-term rental regulations. So without further ado, let's dive into my conversation with Katie. So today we are here with Katie Johnson. And Katie, I am so grateful for you being willing to come on and share your experiences and stories with us. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me, Stacy. Been a big fan of yours for a while, so I was delighted for the opportunity.
Yay! Well, I know we've got a lot to unpack today, but before we start, let's just have you share a little bit about who you are and where you live.
Sure. So my name's Katie Johnson, and I'm an attorney in Michigan, and I'm also a short-term rental host. So I have 4 short-term rentals, one that's kind of been converted into a long-term rental for now, due to some regulation changes, and then also a couple long-term rentals as well. So I live in Holland, Michigan, which is a vacation destination in Michigan, and that's where one of my rentals is as well. And I'm an attorney who helps people with real estate questions and business law.
Amazing. Amazing. So I'm curious, how did you get started in the whole short-term rental space to begin with?
So I've been a host for a long time. We first started hosting in 2015. My husband and I bought our first home, and I had read Rich Dad, Poor Dad a few years prior to buying it, and that's kind of what motivated me to okay, we have to buy a home. We have to get into home ownership, right? And in there, it talks about kind of like house hacking, I believe. And so I was looking for a duplex that we could buy. We weren't able to find a duplex at the time, or maybe we were impatient, right? For where we were looking, we wanted to be in a good school district. We had planned on having children. And so what we did find though was a home that you could kind of section off. And I was like, what if we rented part of it out on Airbnb? Because Airbnb kind of had, I don't know, taken off at this point. We had stayed at some Airbnbs, and at the time, a lot of people were renting out parts of their homes and that sort of thing. So we started hosting half of our house on Airbnb. And from there, I was like, wow, this is quite awesome. I think we could do this on a bigger scale. We could actually buy a home dedicated for the purpose of Airbnb-ing. And we started buying them in Michigan, where we're both from. At the time, we were living in Chicago. So
that is so fun. And isn't it so amazing how you start with one property and then the light bulbs start going off oh, hey, this is fun and I can make money at the same time. Let's do this more. That's so fun to hear. And so your properties now, are they all still located in Michigan, or are they in other areas as well?
We kept our Chicago home when we moved to Michigan. So that's the only one that's outside of Michigan. Otherwise, they're all in the Southwest Michigan area, which is a historic vacation destination.
I love it. I love it. So I want to ask you about a topic that I know you've had a ton of experience with, and that is deed restrictions. So first, can you help us understand what is a deed restriction and why should short-term rental owners be on the lookout for them?
Yeah, for sure. So deed restrictions are restrictions that are placed on the deed of the home that would restrict its use in some capacity. They could be restrictions for residential use only, which would be relevant to short-term rental owners, or it could be restrictions, hey, you can't have a fence on your property. They can kind of be very similar to like what you might think of as HOA restrictions, homeowners association restrictions, but they're separate and distinct from that. You could have an HOA and a deed restriction. You could have no HOA and just a deed restriction. So I think a lot of times people get confused when they're vetting the properties and they say, okay, I have no HOA. The town allows them. I'm good to go. And then they forget to check the deed restrictions, particularly in Michigan. They come up quite a bit. And of course, this is going to vary state by state on what your state interprets as residential use only and how deed restrictions, how common they are. I know they come up, at least I've talked to some folks in Kentucky and Texas as well, where it's been coming up, and North Carolina as well.
And so how does one go about looking to see if there's a deed restriction? And would it specifically say no short-term rentals, or what type of language should they be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I think this is where you certainly can do it yourself, but having an attorney maybe local to your market would be quite helpful because they're going to know how to do it for your market, what it looks like there, that sort of thing. So here in Michigan, what it would look like, it would be on your title work. So you put your property under contract. And I know y'all probably are familiar, you get your title work back a few days later. It's requested. They do the title search, make sure your title is free and clear. Well, on there's like a list of different things. And one of them would be, if there's a deed restriction, it would say something like subject to restrictions and covenants recorded at Lieber 85, page 75 or something like that. And then from there, you'd have to ask for the title company, most likely, and ask them for that page, Lieber and page, and then read that and see what it says. They're not going to necessarily say no short-term rentals only, no short-term rentals. It's most likely going to say something like for single-family residential use only. And in Michigan, at least, our courts have interpreted a single-family residential use only to prohibit short-term rentals.
Interesting. Now, in Michigan as well, does it also, that single family residential use only, does that prohibit midterm and long-term rentals, or would it only prohibit, again, in your experience in Michigan, not giving legal advice here, folks, just curious how that's interpreted from a midterm rental or long-term rental perspective?
Yeah, no, midterm and long-term. So anything over like 28 days is considered long-term here, at least by the courts, how they've interpreted it. And that has not been interpreted to prohibit that use, just the short-term rental use. They consider the short-term rental use more of a commercial activity due to the, people's transient nature and the money exchange all the time, kind of like, more akin to a business or a motel or hotel is how they've interpreted it, versus someone staying there for a month or longer. That's more residential use in the court's interpretation. I'm not saying I necessarily agree, but that's what the courts have interpreted it as.
Yeah. And so if someone finds that, hey, there is a restriction that says some language that I'm not sure what it means or how my state interprets it, what should they do next?
I would recommend finding a local real estate attorney to talk to who specializes in land use or, generally would be familiar with deed restrictions and, ask for their help on interpreting it and what the interpretation in that state has been. A lot of real estate attorneys will do residential closings for a flat rate, and that could be included in the flat rate for doing residential closings. So it's not going to be that expensive to get this advice, but it's going to be invaluable and very important as you are investing a ton of money in your future here.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And can you help us, again, peel back the layers, maybe even a little bit more? Where do these deed restrictions come from? And can anyone just create their own deed restriction? How does that play out?
Yeah, so they typically come when the lot is developed into a home. So it would come from when you're looking and you're thinking, will there be a deed restriction here? It might be like a lake community where it was developed maybe all at the same time, or at least, plotted at the same time, where they wanted to restrict the use in a certain way to make sure they preserve their lake community, or in like a subdivision where they wanted to keep that preserved in a certain way. So that's the common spot they would have them. It would be typically done by a developer or a group of neighbors coming together and saying like they wanted to put these covenants together, but it's typically done before development.
And is there any way to get a deed restriction removed?
Yeah, that's pretty complicated, and it depends on the deed restriction, depends on the state, of course, but here in Michigan, it's pretty complicated. it will take sometimes the deed restriction will have a sunset. So that would be good. Like if the deed restriction says it sunsets at this time, unless it's renewed. So then you'd be okay. But often they are renewed. But otherwise, yeah, you're going to have to look at the deed restriction itself. The deed restriction would tell you how it could get removed, often by vote of the people who have the deed restriction, a majority vote, possibly even more than a majority, like a 75% vote. But it really depends on what the deed restriction says. And in Michigan, they're pretty hard to get removed.
Gotcha. So if we find something that comes up, we're probably not going to bet on having that deed restriction removed. It's there to stay.
I would not bet on that. No. And I don't think I would purchase a property with a deed restriction that restricted short-term rentals. Just, there's always going to be another opportunity out there, right? Even if there's short-term rentals in that neighborhood, potentially, I still myself personally want to take that risk, but everyone's risk tolerance is different. So It's got to be an individual decision.
Now, I have a question, and I know this is kind of a loaded question because you're an attorney. All right. And I think I know what you're going to tell me as your answer, but I want to go ahead and ask this anyway. I could envision that someone might have something come back from their title work that says, hey, there's a restriction. And instead of hiring an attorney, they want to go to Google and just research it themselves. Can you help us understand the risks behind taking that DIY approach when it comes to deed restrictions or any other legalities?
Yeah, I think, going to Google, or AI, probably like at this point, right? ChatGPT, people go there all the time. I think there's a lot of risk there because there's mistakes that I see frequently on Google. It's just like not an accurate representation of the law, particularly in AI. I often see ChatGPT make up cases, make up law, and I'll even call it out and be like, hey, that's not a case. That case doesn't exist, type back, right? And they're like, oh, so sorry. Yes, we did make that up. Like they'll admit, like they make it, like it's kind of wild. But so the risk there is getting inaccurate information. And this is, hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially that you're investing based on a Google that could be inaccurate. Attorneys use specialized sources like Westlaw, LexisNexis to look at cases and look at the case law. And those aren't readily available necessarily like on Google, like all the cases interpreting what, single family residential use only means or what a deed restriction means in that state. So you might not be able to readily access that information on Google anyway, because the cases are not on Google in the same way. Yeah. They would be probably public somewhere, but like not in the same way. Like it's just not an easy, not what attorneys use to find case law.
Right. Okay. So if you find something has come up, consult with an attorney. Period.
That's what I would advise. Granted, I'm biased, of course, as an attorney, right?
But that's why I'm asking, because I think it's so important for people to understand the risks involved if they take that DIY approach, which I know several people out in this world who are frugal, right? And they're thinking, I don't want to pay an attorney when I can just do the research myself. But what I'm hearing you say, correct me if I'm wrong, is you can do all the research in the world and you're still not going to have access to the case law that an attorney would. And then you're not even going to know how to interpret it like an attorney would.
That's correct. Yep. It's a specialized skill. Yeah.
Hence why y'all went to law school.
That's right.
Okay. I want to shift gears a little bit and ask you about short-term rental bans and about your experience with this, because I know you have some experience with this. So give us a lay of the land. Tell us the behind the scenes context as to what happened with this property and how the litigation got started to begin with.
Yeah. So I do own a short-term rental in Park Township, Michigan, which is also Holland. It's a historic vacation area. People have been vacationing here for over 100 years. And most recently, Park Township decided they didn't want short-term rentals here anymore, and they banned them, like did a straight-up ban. They voted as the trustees. So it's like a board of trustees, a township run by a board of trustees, 7 trustees, and they voted unanimously to sunset short-term rentals here. They gave around 10 months. So they voted in November of 2022 to ban them. And then they said, okay, they all have to be done by October 2023. So it gave some time. What led up to that was the township was discussing putting an ordinance in, decided they weren't able to come to like favorable term, decide how they wanted to do it. And so they thought banning them would be simpler, is my understanding. And then at the time, prior to the ban, we had, as owners, started to get organized. We had hired an attorney local to the area and to help us sort of advocate for our rights as property owners in the area. And so we'd already started to get noted together and all that. But then from there, once the actual ban happened, which was like our worst case scenario, we got even more organized and we formed a not-for-profit, like a nonprofit together, and created that to have people contribute monies to, so we could ultimately sue the township, which is what we did. Yeah.
Interesting. So let's stop there, because I could also envision this playing out in a different type of scenario. In North Myrtle Beach, which is, a lot of my portfolio is down in Myrtle Beach, North Myrtle Beach. North Myrtle Beach is looking to require owners to have licensed property managers. They're trying to ban self-management. And I'm a licensed property manager, and I personally think that is so wrong. So wrong.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you about the process of getting owners together, what that looked like, how long did it take? Can you unpack some of that for us?
Yeah. I mean, so how it looked was we had a volunteer board that we put together. I was on it. Another guy who had created a business was on it. He's been great. Jeremy Allen and Jackie Beck. And then Heather Davis were like the founding board people, and Joe Flick. I like to, I just want to shout out all those folks because they've been really great at all together. And we got together and we sort of brainstormed like, okay, how are we going to find these property owners? Luckily, Heather Davis was on our team, who was a realtor. And so she looked up, I think, using her sources, like everyone in the township who had it as like a non-primary resident, so like a non-homestead. Mm-hmm. And so we used that to send out postcards to people to try to get them to join. We had created a Facebook group as well. And so we had a Facebook group of all Park Township vacation rental homeowners, and then just like local outreach through the property management companies. And so we did it through, I guess, multiple ways to find everyone.
Interesting. And so how long did it take you to ultimately find a larger group of people? Was it 4 weeks, 4 months, 4 years? Like, I know it's not 4 years because
right.
It hasn't been in play that long, but talk to us about that timing.
Yeah. So before the ban, I want to say we had like 30 to 40 people already together. And then after the ban, we got up above 100 people altogether. And so I want to say that happened pretty quickly, because by the time we filed the lawsuit in, I want to say October 2023, November 2023 is when we filed the initial lawsuit. We had over 100 property owners together. So within a few months, we were able to find them with all these resources. And, we made initial contributions a certain amount. Like I think we required people initially to contribute $500. And then from there, when we needed additional funds, we'd ask for another contribution. And every time we asked for a contribution, we said, hey, if you want to be continued to be a part of this lawsuit, you have to make the contribution. And people have been really great about making the contributions, which has allowed us to hire a very large law firm to help go after this town, which has been helpful because larger law firms tend to have more resources and just been really, really immensely helpful.
Okay. So to join the nonprofit or to be a part of the nonprofit, the understanding of the property owners was that they were going to contribute a certain amount of money towards the lawsuit. Y'all weren't out selling candy bars to get outside funding, or have you also raised additional funds outside of your membership?
We have raised additional funds outside of the membership. We did it through like the Realtor Network. I believe we had some funds and grants through them. Heather Davis, the realtor in the group, was really helpful in getting those funds. So having like a resource like that, if you're trying to get organized, is helpful. And then We also had like the local property management company make a relatively substantial contribution. And then a local realtor group also made a substantial contribution. And they're on all our emails, our sponsors.
Hey girl, if you've ever thought about taking back control from Airbnb, you're not alone. And Lodgify is the tool to do it. Did you know that with Lodgify, you can create your own stunning direct booking website, manage everything from guest communication to payments all in one place, and finally say goodbye to the high OTA fees? Now, here's the best part. STR Sisterhood listeners, you get 20% off all yearly plans, plus free personalized onboarding that's worth over $3,000. Just use code STRSH20 and start building your business your way. Gotcha. So you have third parties who are essential sponsors of your nonprofit, and then that gives them additional eyes from all of these property owners. So it's essentially a win-win for them, right? Yeah. It's a tax write-off for them, and they get advertising as a result of it. It helps your owners or your members to be a part of something much larger than they could likely feasibly fund on their own as far as a lawsuit, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Like, because we've spent over $100,000 on legal fees. I mean, litigation is very expensive. I mean, we took depositions. We got, tens of thousands of pages of discovery. We reviewed it all together as a volunteer board on Relativity, a platform that attorneys use to try to cut down on legal fees. We all reviewed it too. But yeah, no, we've spent so much money that we, as an individual, even like with just 10 people, I think would have been hard to feasibly do. So it's been really immensely valuable to be organized and have this like one voice together against the township.
And so from your perspective, obviously you're an attorney. You said the realtor on the advisory board has also played a significant role. Any other types of individuals, if someone is listening and going, I want to do this, what other types of individuals would be beneficial for them to have on their board for their nonprofit?
Yeah. So having me as an attorney has been helpful, of course. The realtor has been helpful, like you mentioned. The president of our board is like a former business owner who built like a business from the ground up. So very helpful, right? Like building a nonprofit's kind of similar to probably starting a business in some capacities. So that's been helpful. And then we have someone also who does like graphic design. And so she's helped with like all the and PR type stuff. So she has helped with like all the newsletters, and she designed our postcard that we sent out. And we sent out another postcard later to all the residents in Park Township too that she designed. So that was helpful. I'm trying to think. And then we have someone who really just does this full time and only has a couple of properties. So she had a lot more time on her hands, which was helpful because she's put in so many hours as like a volunteer. She reviewed a lot of the bulk of the documents that we received. So just someone with time, I think is really helpful as well.
That they're willing to volunteer.
Yes. But also she didn't have a full-time job outside of like one or two, she just had the ability to have the time to do this.
Yeah. Interesting. And so let's talk about the process of getting that nonprofit set up. So obviously you've gathered the people. I think from a consumer standpoint, I've always assumed, whether it's right or wrong, that setting up a nonprofit is a ton of work and is extremely time consuming just to set up the nonprofit. Is that an accurate assumption or no?
I actually thought it was pretty simple. I think with the right resources, it's simple, right? Because we had, of course, some finances that we were able to do and use, but we hired a nonprofit lawyer, someone who specializes in nonprofits. They helped us set up the bylaws. We got the filing done. I think it's probably just as complicated as setting up an LLC in a lot of respects. So, you have to file with the IRS and all that sort of thing. And then every year we file like a 990, but it has not been that complicated.
Interesting. Okay, good to know. And so talk to us a little bit about what has played out since you filed the lawsuit. So you filed it in 2023, correct? What have the last 18 months looked like? And has it put a stay on the ban? How has this played out for you?
Yeah. So we had a really great favorable decision right away. In December 2023, we got an injunction, a stay on the ban based on some technicalities that the township ultimately fixed. But we got that stay, and that lasted until November 2024. So we were able to rent last summer, which was amazing for owners because that helps, of course, to continue this legal fight, to have the funds, right? So we were able to get that stay. But then in November 2024, the case was actually dismissed by the court, not without prejudice, so we could refile, saying that we had not yet exhausted all of our administrative remedies, meaning that we needed to go through the local zoning board of appeals and have them make a decision before the circuit court made a decision, essentially. And so that's what we most recently did. So after the lawsuit was dismissed in November, we filed an appeal with the local zoning board of appeals, which is run by the township. We most recently filed that around January, February this year. And then the hearing was in March and April. It was a very contentious hearing. I think like 100 people spoke. But it was an awesome opportunity for all the owners to speak and tell the story of like, hey, the township told me I could do this. And now the township is changing their mind. We should be grandfathered in as a non-conforming use, because that's the like overwhelming theme of what happened. And we even have documents and emails and writing from the township telling folks we don't have any regulation on short-term rentals. So that's kind of where it's at right now. The zoning board of appeals denied our request to rent, and so now we have filed our notice of appeal of that to the circuit court. So we're going to be back in court again.
Holy moly. And so talk to us a little bit about how this has impacted you personally and emotionally, because you're a lawyer, so you're used to, I'm going to say you're used to the courts, whereas us regular folks who are not lawyers, the thought of like going for deposition and for court hearings sounds traumatic, right? So how has this impacted you being an attorney, but being an active participant in this lawsuit?
Yeah, no, for me, honestly, it just gave me a little bit of fire to want to pursue a career in this area. I haven't always been a real estate attorney. You know, I've had a wide variety of background. I've been an attorney now since 2011, so about 13, 14 years. But it made me really want to help people in this area, and use my skills to work in this area and help people who are navigating, these issues and challenges and guide people. So I found it motivating in that regard. And then I knew, I actually was really hesitant to continue on. I was like, all right, well, we'll sell, we'll do whatever. After the ban happened, I had to be convinced a little bit by Jeremy, who's the president. He's like, no, Katie, we got to fight this, right? He's really got a fighter mentality, and it's really great, and a lot of grit and perseverance there. So, for me, it's really just shown you just have to keep going and have that perseverance, because I think really at the end of this, we will end up with the ability to rent if we just keep pursuing this.
Mm-hmm. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, at this point in time, you're not allowed to rent, or can you while this litigation continues to play out?
I mean, people are certainly doing it, and I don't think any citations have been issued since the stay was lifted in November. I, as an attorney, and just myself, it's just not a risk I'm taking. So we converted ours into a long-term rental for right now, but we're not abandoning the use or anything like that. We intend on short-term renting it when the township allows it again.
Yeah. And so what advice would you have for folks who are facing similar scenarios where their local restrictions or ordinances might be on the docket, might be popping up? What advice would you give to anyone listening with how to tackle that situation?
Yeah, I think, getting organized and banding together, finding an attorney, a local attorney, ideally that knows the board or knows the town that you're dealing with, to help you navigate through this process is the best advice I can give anyone. So what do you do to get organized? I'd say Facebook, all us real estate investors, we love the Facebook groups. So start a Facebook group, try to get owners in there. If you're local to the community, talk to business owners, talk to the local management companies, just trying to get all those owners banded together is really, really helpful. And so getting organized and starting sort of like a grassroots movement is helpful. I think one of the mistakes we made too early on is just not getting more business community involved, right? I think that's something we could have probably done a better job with, is just going door to door to businesses, talking about what's going on and getting their support. Because obviously our customers are going to their businesses and supporting their businesses. I mean, this is a vacation market. So I think that that's something you can also do, but really just having that grassroots movement, having that fire, getting together, getting organized, and then also having a trusted resource like an attorney help guide you through.
So interesting. And I love the idea of going to the local businesses, because to your point, so much of the local economy is based off of the tourists who are coming in to stay in your community. And if you're not allowed to welcome tourists, that's going to impact those business owners. So I would imagine that you'd want to focus on business owners who have some sort of retail presence or food and beverage, any other types of businesses that you feel like would be important for folks to target.
Yeah, I think anything like that, retail, food and beverage, ice cream shops, also the businesses that serve the rentals, right? Like the trades, HVAC, cleaning services, that sort of thing. We did do an economic study. We did pay quite a substantial fee to do an economic study, and they did say that it would impact the economic nature in Holland. But I think more of that personal level, we had hired a local school to do it, more of that personal level, going door to door, having those conversations. And so I think, doing that at the business level would be helpful. And also just generally in the community, right? Trying to get the community sentiment to support what you're doing, and, having those sort of conversations can be helpful as well.
Love that. And one other question I have for you is, obviously you've been in this space for many, many years. You have not only been through challenges when it comes to litigation or deed restrictions, but you've seen multiple things because you're an owner. You also do co-hosting. What's one thing you wish more women in the short-term rental industry knew to protect themselves and their businesses? Any thoughts come to mind for you?
Well, to protect themselves and their businesses, I would form an LLC, get some good asset protection going, right? You can do that yourself, or you can consult someone to help you, of course. And then just, having a tribe is great. Your group on Facebook is great, Stacy. Finding people who are doing the same things, finding people who are thinking big like you. That's been immensely helpful for me too.
Mm-hmm. Love it, love it, love it. So good. And what's next for you? I'm curious.
Well, that's a good question. Recently I started my own law firm, Catherine Johnson PLC. So I'm excited about that. And I also am starting a podcast, which I've recorded 4 episodes. I just got it published. It's called STR Law. So that's what's next for me. And I'm excited for that.
That is so fun. Who knew? The world of podcasting, I absolutely love. For me, it's so interesting to have conversations with folks like you where I learn something, right, from the discussions. But yet it's an opportunity for us to be a conduit of information to help someone else in their journey. And so it's also incredibly rewarding. So I'm excited for you and your podcast. I can't wait to listen to it.
Oh, thanks, Stacy. Yeah, it's going to be pretty good. I'm going to have a mixture of hosts, people like yourself, and then also attorneys who specialize maybe in a different area of law, someone on evictions, HOA, that sort of stuff. So it'll be a real good lineup.
Love it. Love it. Okay. I want to move to the lightning round. All right. And I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I just want you to answer with the very first thing that comes to mind. First question is, where is your favorite place to vacation?
Anywhere where there's a lake. Like, I love fishing. I love going on the lake. I love swimming. So it can be anywhere with a lake, a good lake.
I love it. Okay. Now, you love to go fishing. I have to say that I don't meet many women who say they love to go fishing. So have you gone fishing your whole life? Tell me about this.
No, not at all. I'm a new fisherman or whatever, fisherwoman. So I have two sons, and I have a older daughter as well. But my two sons, and my older son really wanted to start fishing last summer. And he's like, I really want to go fishing. And so I was like, okay, let's get a fishing pole. We'll get some fishing gear, whatever, really basic. And I went fishing with him, and I was like, this is really fun. And the two of us just have fun for hours, just like really basic fishing. We haven't done anything too crazy, but we just love fishing, both of us.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So my dad used to take me fishing as a little girl, and I am not much of an outdoorsy person. Okay. So my childhood was full of going camping and fishing. And so I feel like I have a little bit of PTSD from the whole fishing thing because, first of all, I don't like worms. I don't like touching live animals and putting them on hooks, right? But I will say on a couple of vacations, we've done deep sea fishing excursions, and those have been very enjoyable, probably because I know they're going to end in 90 minutes. But if you ever take your kiddo to the ocean, take them deep sea fishing.
That's what he wants to do. It's like his dream. He really wants to go to Florida to go deep sea fishing. So we're going to do that for sure. I'm with you, though. I'm not a huge fan of touching the worms or the fish. So luckily he likes doing it. So I get him to do it for me. He'll like take them off the hook, let them go.
All right. Okay. So all you have to do is like cast and reel.
That's right.
All right. I could go fishing with your son then.
Yeah.
All right. What's one place you've never been that you want to visit?
St. Lucia.
Ooh. Now, what makes you say St. Lucia?
Again, my love of fish. I think there's really good snorkeling there. And so I've always wanted to do that. And it looks really pretty. And I think there's good hiking. And I like hiking and stuff like that. It's funny because I was just writing this morning. Like I was doing some journaling. I want to go to St. Lucia. So
I'll be darned. So it's interesting. I just got back from a Mediterranean cruise, and I met actually several people who had been to St. Lucia and gave me an interesting warning, which I would have never dreamed about this. But since we're talking about St. Lucia, I'm going to share the wisdom with you.
Please.
Evidently, when it rains, there is mud that comes off of the cliffs into the ocean.
Oh.
And so if you're planning on swimming in the ocean, you don't want to take light colored bathing suits because evidently like it ruins your bathing suits. If it happens to rain, the water becomes very murky and then you can't get evidently the muddy stains out of your bathing suit. So I just want to share that with you if you ever decide to go.
That's really important to know. Thank you so much.
You could go skinny dipping and you would be fine.
That's too funny.
Which I am not proposing that you should do that. I'm just saying. Okay, so fun. So St. Lucia, I went to on a cruise in December and loved it.
Cool.
Like,
yeah,
it was beautiful. And as you might imagine, I was there for like 8 hours. So I didn't get to see a whole ton of things, but we did an amazing excursion on a catamaran around the island. It is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. So, okay, next question is, what's one thing you know now that you wished you knew when you were starting out in the world of short-term rentals?
If the numbers work, you should buy it. Like buy everything you can, So I wish I started buying earlier. I think everyone says that, right? So that would be my advice to anyone. Just get started.
Love it. And I think so often people are afraid to take that first step because they don't want to make a mistake, right? And so I do think it's important that the numbers work and you know how to analyze the numbers. And that's something that, I teach inside the STR Success Accelerator because I feel like it's so important for people to be laying down hundreds of $1,000s on the line, they need to have a good sense of, yes, this is going to work, or no, this shouldn't. I shouldn't buy this. This isn't going to work. But unless you know how to analyze those numbers, I don't recommend you just buy on a whim. What are your thoughts on that?
No, of course. Yeah, no, you need to know the numbers, make sure it works. And of course, you want to do the legal due diligence, make sure that you can rent there and make sure it's all good like that. But I am saying, like, don't get caught up in that analysis paralysis too, though.
Oh, totally. And it's so easy to do. So easy to do. All right, next question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I have like a motto in my head that I use a lot, which is like, how you do anything is how you do everything. So that's helpful for me. So I don't remember I think I heard it from Jessica Sims from Peloton. She would always say that. And so I had it printed out because I really like it. And I think it applies really, a lot to like, when you're working out, or like if you're, working on your short-term rental or your career, like, just working hard and having that hard work ethic for it.
I love that. So how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yes.
I love that. That's so good. I might have to print it out too. All right. Last question. What's one thing and or person that you're grateful for today?
I'd say I'm really grateful for my partner in this business, my husband. He's like a zing to my yang, or zing to, I don't know, however you say that. I do a lot of the paperwork type stuff, but he's always out there in the field fixing things and making sure things all are happening. So I'm really grateful for him and our partnership in this. And without him, we wouldn't be where we are today.
I love that. What's your hubby's name?
Matt.
Okay, Matt, you better listen and give her roses after listening to that podcast. Shout out. So good. Katie, if folks want to learn more about you, or maybe the services that you offer, what is the best place for them to find you online?
I have a website. It's katiejohnsonplc.com. So my website offers all my services, and there's also a link if you want to schedule a call and just have an initial consultation. I do free consultations. So if anyone wants to chat, I'd be always happy to.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Katie.
Oh, thank you for having me, Stacy.
Okay, girlfriend, before you go, I want to give a quick shout out to all the amazing women who are posting inside the self-promo marketplace in the STR Sisterhood community. So did you know that you can hop over to our self-promo marketplace if you have a product or a service that can serve other people in the short-term rental space? Post it in the self-promo marketplace. And you can also shop from amazing women from all around the world who are providing wonderful digital products and physical products and services that can help you in your own STR journey. That is also inside the self-promo marketplace. To find us online, just go to the strsisterhood.amazonmighty, network.co, and I'll see you there.